Hello everyone and welcome to this week's video tutorial. It will be the start of a new series in a new chapter that deals specifically with the pawn opening. Pawn opening is called 仙人指路 or 挺兵局 in Chinese. 仙人指路 is quite a poetic name. It will mean, if simply translated, it will mean a deity pointing the way forward. So the translation is quite figurative, but it shows the subtlety of this opening. And compared with the central canon, this opening system plays by quite a different set of rules and has a very different set of temperament. And in the past 20 years, the pawn opening has become perhaps the second most commonly played red opening in all the competitions seen, and there's a trend that is gradually increasing in popularity. So without further ado, let us begin this video. Pawn opening. By default, P7 plus 1 or P3 plus 1 is called the pawn opening. Charging the central pawn forward is not considered to be orthodox. Neither would be P1 plus 1 or P9 plus 1. P1 plus 1 is called a one-horn monster. P9 plus 1 is called a nine-tailed tortoise opening. As for P5 plus 1, the only name that I've seen so far is called Jixianfeng or the Vanguard pawn opening. But by default, the pawn opening would refer to P7 plus 1 or P3 plus 1. And in most books, P7 plus 1 is given as the first move. So this will be known as the pawn opening. There are many counters to the pawn opening. P7 plus 1 countered by another P7 plus 1, etc. is also commonly seen. But amongst all the counters, it is generally, the general consensus is that black's C2 equals to 3 to target this pawn immediately is perhaps black's best counter thus far, and can be very commonly seen in Xiangqi tournaments nowadays. Now C2 equals to 3 is known as the thundering cannon. The Chinese name is called Lei, which translated directly would be called one roar of thunder. So the translation that the Asian Xiangqi Federation gave in the past called it the thundering cannon, which is quite apt in my opinion. Now with C2 equals to 3, black would be prepared to play P3 plus 1, and if it captured, black would capture the elephant for a check and capture the chariot. This is a very targeted and specific, very focused attack on red's P7 plus 1. In the past, this was not so seen, but improvements in opening theory have showed that red C2 equals to 5 is perhaps the best red counter for this move. In the past, E7 plus 5 was played in preparation or in defense of this move. However, it has been shown not to be a very good idea, and this topic will be discussed in the future video. Now, C8 equals to 5 is also commonly seen, and one of the main issues that one might ask now is what would happen if black continued with P7 plus 5. So modern day opening theory would suggest that black would play E3 plus 5 instead of H8 plus 7 to strengthen the central file, because black would now be prepared to develop his right flank in retaliation instead of protecting the central pawn. Because C2 equals to 3 had been played, it would be impossible for black to adopt the screen horse defense formation, and thus the central pawn would be relatively weak and more vulnerable to attack. So modern day opening theory decided just to play E3 to consolidate the defense first, and red would usually play H2 plus 3. Now capturing the central pawn is also occasionally seen as in major tournaments, whereby red will gain and central pawn very early in the game in terms of material. However, that will be beyond the scope of today's video. Instead, h2 plus 3 is perhaps the most commonly seen red variation thus far. And black would charge p3 plus 1 forward. So this would now place a lot of pressure on the elephant over here. Now this is one of black's main options in this position. Another commonly seen position would to play r9 plus 1 to develop the chariot as a flank chariot. This chariot will later cross the palace, most probably to r9 equals to 4, and black would try to mount or focus his material attacking this flank, while red will go for attack from the center. A possible line is that was given a book is r1 equals to 2. Because the cannons are linked apart, black would not have to worry about the cannon at the moment. r9 equals to 2 is one of the older variations. Bishop plus 7. Now one might think that this is not a good idea because black would still could charge the pawn forward, but let us see. Black would play h2 plus 4, c8 equals to 9. Both colors will develop their material, and black can hope to build up a staunch defense. Now as can be seen, the opening positions or the formations for both colors are a little bit different from what you have seen in the screen horse and sandwich horse opening. And perhaps because this is considered to be a new frontier, it has caught on quite, it has become quite popular. Now this is a possible line. Black would try to focus material on this flank, inhibit the development of red's left flank, and build out staunch defense. So p3 plus 1, black will play r1 equals to 2, not worried about the pawn. Black pushes the pawn across the river, h8 plus 9. So otherwise, for example, if red played this would happen for beginners. Check, check, and reds will be all sorts of trouble losing the chariot so early. So r9 plus 1. And one thing about the pawn opening, because is subtlety. Red will have many things to do. At this point in time, the issue will be for red will be the pawn over here. So one of the ways since red had deliberately let the pawn across the river, one of the ways that they could counter would be to play r2 plus 4, thus putting black in a dilemma. Now this would be a dilemma for black because black had used up 1-2 moves to push the pawn across the river. Unfortunately, if he wanted to keep protecting the pawn, if he moved the pawn forward, red could play c8 equals to 6, etc. The horse would be guarding this intersection, and black would have to use up more moves. So many of black's first few moves would be used to move this pawn, and this would result in a delay of development of the other major black pieces, and this is one of the strategy behind red's pseudo sacrifice over here. So red advances the chariot to capture the pawn, forcing the pawn forward. Now this is a slow and steadfast approach, and black was overly concerned with material advantage. By pushing the pawn forward, again as mentioned earlier, black could have used up 1-2-3 moves so early in the game. Only by the 6th ply, half of the plies were used to move this pawn. This would mean that the other pieces were severely undeveloped. Now the correct move to make would be to counter sacrifice the pawn with r9 equals to 4, whereby black will still apply a lot of pressure over here. A possible line is black would protect the central pawn, and also be prepared to move the horse to attack the chariot. He could be able to counter red's aggressions very nicely. Let's say black red played r9 equals p9 plus 1. If he played r9 equals to 8, black would play h2 plus 4, be prepared to threaten the chariot. p9 plus 1, p1 plus 1, pawn had crossed the river, check, trade of material, and it will be a calm situation at the moment. Black is still able to hold his own. Although red had linked his chariots in the same line, he would still have to maneuver them to be a better position. So at this point in time, black will still be able to deal with red's aggressions very nicely. So r9 equals to 4 would be the recommended move. So now red will capture the central pawn, check, and attack. Because the advisor moved, red will now push the cannon forward. Now as can be seen, black's right flank, the chariot and the horse had not moved. And after making this move, black would exploit this fact and advance the cannon, which should pin or prevent the horse from developing, and also attack the chariot. So there was much coherence in his tactics. Now, if red chose to play c8 equals to 5, black would charge the pawn forward, threatening the cannon. a6 plus 5 is a sound move. If red was too eager to attack, p3 plus 4 would happen, and black's and red's earlier effects would be placed in vain. So h4 plus 5, and r9 equals to 6, and black would have been able to construct a formidable defense at this point in time, and he could still hold his own. And the pawn at this point will now become a menace, because red was not able to take out the pawn and allowed it to grow. So c8 plus 6 is the recommended move. h2 plus 4 to prevent capture and block. And now red's horse would gallop into action, and black would now play r1 equals to 2. Now would r1 plus 1 to develop the chariot be possible? Let us see. Red will protect the cannon, try to capture the encircle and capture the red cannon, but red would have this move of r2 equals to 7, and black's earlier efforts would now have been made in naught, because red would now threaten to checkmate with r7 plus 5, and the king cannot move out, otherwise it will still a checkmate. So the only way that black can defend against this possible checkmate would be to play r1 minus 1, and thus red would have been able to save the cannon and mount an even more powerful offensive. That is why r1 plus 1 is not a good idea and is not feasible. So red would move c8 equals to 9, threatening to move the cannon for the heaven and earth cannons, and this would be the position of discussion for this board. There are two main lines, first two of which will be r9 equals to 6, and the second will be r2 plus 3, variation B. But before we continue, let us see if r2 plus 1 would be a good idea, whereby black will threaten the cannon. Red will accept the trade of material, and you can see that this flank is now very empty. r9 equals to 8 to threaten iron bolt, checkmate. The cannons are used to block, and the chariot is able to get to the pawn rank in time. As can be seen, positioning wise, red has superior position. This horse is ready to go. His defense has yet to be constructed, and can be constructed in view of how black would react. And because black had used up several moves to move the pawn earlier, we can see that he had now fallen far behind in terms of development of the material. So red would have excellent positioning, and that is why r2 plus 1 is not viable. Now what about r8 h8 plus 7 to offer a trade of cannons? Of course, red would not want because this not want to trade cannons because this cannon is simply more of a threat. 7 plus 5. This horse cannot move, or black would lose the chariot. So h7 plus 5. Black tries to beef up his central file. h7 plus 6, and again, red would have a very spatial advantage, and red would now be threatening to take the elephant by force. So by this I mean, let's say black moved. Let's say black made any other move. Capture. If black captured, this will be a check. So the only way that black can resolve this check will be, let's say, to move the advisor, and he will lose the chariot. And as can be seen, black's material is falling apart, and red will have a huge advantage. So h8 plus 7 is not viable either. Now let us go to variation A. r9 equals to 6. Red will gain a pawn. There'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 versus black's 2 pawns at this point in time, and he will now focus his attack on this flank for a very flexible move. And this is considered to be an agile move and quite commonly seen. Black starts his counter, moves the horse away. 6 minus 1. After dislodging the horse, he will now attack the central pawn, but this horse will now protect the central pawn with h7 plus 6, h8 plus 9 to prevent the cannon from going to the bot corner. Black doubles down on his defense of the central pawn. h6 plus 7, threatening to capture the pawn for a fork. Of course, red would not allow. And black will play c8 equals to 6 this is a very important defensive move, because if not, let's say black made out some other move, red would be prepared to capture and thus gain material. So a very defensive move by moving the cannon. If the cannon were here, red use the horse to attack. This cannon will not be protected. 7 plus 5, red will now consolidate his defense. Black retreats the horse, preparing to play here and defend against this horse over here. 9 equals to 7, and the black pieces will be limited in effectiveness. Danger lurked everywhere. Red will be attacking from all directions, from the center, this flank, and also this flank. Red would have a huge initiative, and perhaps in this variation, the most important thing to see is the versatility of red's formation. Now let us go to variation B, whereby black would play r2 plus 3 to try to dislodge this cannon. Red will usually retreat the cannon, keeping the threat of a central cannon alive. And the correct way to do so would be c2 minus 1. If c5 minus 2, if c5 minus 1, black would now start his counter, attacking the horse. H4 plus 5, threatening the horse and also threatening to gain material. Both colors will be pestering each other in this very sticky and complicated situation, but red would need to put in a lot more effort to try to break through black's defenses at the moment. So c5 minus 1 is not as good as retreating the cannon 2 steps, whereby it will be protected by the pawn immediately. Black would counter with r9 plus 6, threatening the horse. h7 plus 6, r2 equals to 4, as the horse now was threatening the chariot. r9 equals to 8. Red is prepared to sacrifice the horse to try to attack from the central file with his cannon and chariot combination. r6 plus 3. Black tries to defend and gain some material. This would be the best counter for black in his current situation. If he accepted the trade immediately, his position will fall apart, because now the chariot would now simply terrify the entire bottom rank. c3 equals to 2 to prevent the chariot from advancing. 2 plus 3. Black would be more than happy to. This would be a pseudo sacrifice. Plus 2 trading material. As can be seen, the chariot is now trapped, and red will immediately gain a winning position. This chariot is now very agile. It is prepared to move over here to attack. So this would be a winning position for red. This will be black's best move. Red will continue his attack. Block. 2 plus 3 again. It's a very straightforward but desirable move. If he played h6 minus 7, black could now beef up his central file with h4 plus 5, and it would take red much more effort to try to claim back, to try to keep his attack going on. So h6 plus 4, black doubles downs on his defense on this file, threatening to checkmate also, forcing red to play a4 plus 5, and he would protect his horse, and red would continue his attack. He will not only have more pawns, possess the offensive, and at the same time, red would now be prepared to play c9 equals to 4 to capture the advisor for the win. Red will have a significant advantage in this situation. Now, perhaps the most important lesson to learn in this move will be the fact that it will be the fact that faced with red's r2 plus 4, black played p3 plus 1 to advance, trying to keep this pawn alive. Now, under most circumstances, a pawn that crossed the river is very precious, but in this opening system, one would have to think twice, because black had used up too many moves to move the pawn, and this will be done at the expense of underdevelopment of the other major pieces. Now, this is perhaps the most important lesson to learn from this board, and it shows one of the reasons why this pawn in Xiangqi, sometimes if it is necessary, a counter sacrifice is usually made to try to salvage the situation. Now let us review this board from the eyes of black. Pawn opening, thundering cannon or thundering defense. c2 equals to 5. 3 plus 5, e3 plus 5, e7 plus 5 are all possible. e3 plus 5 is usually seen. h2 plus 3, p3 plus 1, so far okay. This is a continuation of c2 equals to 5, c2 equals to 3, sorry. If r9 plus 1 is so viable, black can put up a staunch defense. But this is one of the older variations. Now r1 equals to 2, p3 plus 1, threatening to capture the elephant. I've seen e7 plus 9 also, but in this book, in this opening board, h8 plus 9 is played. R9 plus 1, L2 plus 4. Now red would deal with the issue of the pawn, placing black in a dilemma. And this would be the mistake in this board. It is recommended that black would counter-sacrifice the pawn, because black would now be able to start mounting his defense. And red's initial attack would have fizzled out. Black can take his time and try to salvage the situation. c5 plus 4, capturing a central pawn, preventing the cannon from chariot from crossing the palace. c plus 6, a very powerful move to attack. And black would play r1 plus 1. If he played, sorry, r1 equals to 2. If he played r1 plus 1, red would have r2 equals 7, threatening to checkmate. So black would have failed in his attempt to try to encircle and annihilate the red cannon. c8 equals to 9, and this would be the position of discussion. Two main variations, r9 equals to 6, r2 plus 3. Now r2 plus 1 is not viable because red would have commanded the important lines in space and still be attacking. Neither would h8 plus 7, offering a trade of cannons, because of course red would refuse, and this horse will now become a menace. Variation A, c5 equals to 1. Red switches the direction of his attack. 6 plus 6. Red dislodges, it retreats, trying to capture the central pawn, and red defends very proactively. Black chooses to deal with the issue of this horse. c2 goes to 5, threatening to capture the pawn for a fork. Red advances, defends, otherwise there's h6 plus 5, and the black pieces would be limited in effectiveness. Red will still be attacking from all over the place. Last variation, 2 plus 3. Better for red to retreat the cannon 2 intersections. If he retreated 1 intersection, black will be given a chance to come back. r9 equals to 6, h7 plus 6, preventing the horse from capture and threatening to counter capture the horse. Red threatens to attack for a checkmate. This would be r6 plus 3. The best move in this situation. If red captured the horse immediately, red will now have the heaven and earth cannons in place. This chariot will be prepared to move over to this flank, and black would have a lot of trouble trying to get himself out of this mess. So r6 plus 3 is black's best bet. Heaven and earth cannons. Red captures now the cannon. h6 minus 7 is not a good idea, because h4 plus 5 would allow black to crawl back into the game. Now red would usually capture. Now he cannot. So before beginners, let me retract a little. Now for beginners, let me retract a little bit. Black must capture the horse. He cannot capture the cannon, otherwise it's a check. This will be immediate checkmate. Cannon, the horse cannot capture, or this will be a check. The cannon will still be attacking. So a4 plus 5, black tries to steal a counter kill. e7 plus 5 is not as good, because black can play r5 plus 5, take out the advisor, and force a trade of chariots by force. So Again, Red would not only have more pawns, he would possess the offensive and foreshadow the option of playing c9 equals to 4 to take out the advisor by force for a win. So this would be one of the many possible options that Red would have. So as a short summary, the pawn opening has become very popular. There are many tricks and traps that are very different from the central cannon or other opening systems. And because Black would have played the Thundering Cannon by the second move, the best counter would be the Thundering Cannon, but because Black would have played the Thundering Cannon, any possibility of playing a screen house defense for added defensive power of the central pawn would now be impossible. And this opening system would focus more on the other aspects of opening theory, which are quite different from what you would normally expect from the same direction cannons or the central cannon versus screen house defense, sandwich house defense opening systems. So if you like the work that I've been doing, please do subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you.